gonna be honest with you. The only reason I'm doing my 2022 favorites this early on in the year is for Kayla from Books and Lala. Not that I think I'm gonna be featured in that video, but on the slight percentage that I might be, I'm getting this out early for her. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with my top 10 favorite books of 2022. My name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. And you guys, I am so excited because this is my very first video that I'm filming for 2023. And this is also the first video that I'm filming in my own place. I'm so excited to be filming here. But anyways, I'm also very excited to be sharing with you all of these books and titles too. Everything in this list is a 5-star read that I loved. I do have some honorable mentions that I will mention briefly, and this is in order. So it's gonna go from least favorite all the way to top favorite. And also there are a couple of titles that I won't be able to show you physically because they are currently still in boxes. But okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with 2022 favorite books. So let's start with the honorable mentions. I am not going to be giving you summaries for the honorable mentions, but I did just want to kind of show you the small stack of books that I also really loved and had a hard time not including in this video. The first couple are romances. The very first one is Neon Gods by Katie Robert. I was not expecting to like this, and this is extremely steamy and very spicy, so proceed with caution, but it was great. Next is actually going to be a favorite romance author, which is Talia Hibbert. I have not read the very first book in her series, the Brown Sister series, but I did end up reading both Take a Hit, Danny Brown, and Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and I love them both, and I gave them both 5 out of 5 stars. My two favorite middle grades that ended up not making the top 10, but were both 5 out of 5 stars were The Glass Switch by Lindsay Puckett and also Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. My favorite adult contemporary literary fiction that I loved but just didn't make the cut was Sirens and Muses, and this is by Antonia Angres. I loved this one so much. And then finally, my favorite poetry collection of the year and one that just barely missed the top 10 is The Tradition, and this is by Jericho Brown. If you're a big fan of poetry, I highly recommend picking this up. This is one of the best poetry collections I've ever read in my whole entire life and was by far one of my favorite poetry collections that I've read in recent years. It was brilliant. And that's it for the honorable mentions. So without further ado, let's get into the actual top 10 books of the year. The first book is a book that I am so shocked is on this list, but I kept thinking about it and going back and forth, and this deserves to be in my top 10 books of the year because I could not stop thinking about it and I could not put it down while I was reading it, and that is Nerd: Adventures in Fandom from the Universe to the Multiverse by Maya Phillips. The reason I'm so incredibly surprised that this book is in my top 10 is because I almost never have nonfiction books in my top 10. I don't really reach for nonfiction a lot. This year, I really wanted to reach for some more nonfiction books for Nonfiction November, and I'm so glad I did because I loved this book so much. I definitely tabbed it up if you can see on the side here. This is a collection of essays, and the essays range from feminism to gender roles to the Black experience in America, and there are all of these really huge important topics and conversations that Maya Phillips has, and she blends them seamlessly with different fandoms. We are talking about Star Wars and Harry Potter, we're talking about Sailor Moon and anime, we're talking about Marvel and superheroes, and also old school Looney Tunes cartoons. And it was just so much fun. A lot of these topics in this book actually kind of intimidate me to read about, but Maya Phillips broke all of them down in such an accessible way, and she made everything so much fun because there were so many fandoms that I was also a part of growing up that I could really relate to, and I just had the best time. I don't know if I'm selling it in a good enough way, but I have to tell you, if you're a person who enjoys critical thinking, nonfiction, and also fandom cultures, this is the book for you. It was just so good. The next book I have on this list is an adult magical realism, and that is The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This book was so weird, but like in the best way possible in my personal opinion. I will say that this book is not going to be a book for everyone because it was very, very bizarre, as most magical realism is, but this really sparked my love for magical realism all over again. And in 2023, I actually want to make reading magical realism more of a priority. This book is following Orquídea Divina, and she is a woman who is dying, and she calls all of her ancestors over to receive their inheritance early, but their inheritance is very different than what they think it is. Half of the book is taking place in the now, and we are kind of like exploring the lives of her grandchildren specifically, and then half of the book is following Orquídea Divina in her youth, and we're seeing all of the different magical and whimsical things that happened to her as a child, as well as some of the more troubling things that happened to her as an adult. It's a beautiful tale of family resilience, of also a woman's resilience, and also of like generational trauma and breaking generational trauma. I think this would remind a lot of people of Encanto, and really the heart of this book is about family and about how you would do anything for family, as well as how amazing of a life Orquídea Divina lived, and it was just such a great read. Lots and lots of trigger warnings in this one. It is a very heavy read as well, but I was just so enthralled with this book, and I highly recommend it. Next up is a cozy mystery that I absolutely adored, and that is Finley Donovan is Killing It, and this is by El Casamano, and this is an adult mystery. There were multiple times while reading this that I actually had to pause because I was laughing so hard. So this book is following Finley, and Finley Donovan is actually not killing it in life. She has recently become a single parent to, I want to say like 3 kids, because she has just gotten a divorce from her husband, and she's meeting with her editor to discuss a book that she currently is drafting for her editor, and it's a murder mystery. And while she's kind of explaining how she's going to kill off her main character, a woman overhears and thinks that Finley Donovan is a hit woman, and she employs her to kill this woman's husband. And so Finley Donovan now has to literally kill it, and by kill it, I mean murder a man that she has no idea, she doesn't know who he is. Yeah. The reason I like this book so much is because it felt really, really lighthearted. It was definitely action-packed, and there was a lot of high stakes involved at all times. So if you're looking for a cozy mystery, meaning a more peaceful and relaxed mystery, this might not be the one for you. But if you're looking for a very fast-paced, engaging thriller slash mystery with a fantastic cast of characters and also a killer audiobook narrator, I could not recommend this more. It was just so much fun. Okay, the next book is a book that I have to have like a million disclaimers for, because this is not going to be a book for everyone. This is going to be a book for a very, very small percentage of people because it is so weird. It turns out that I am a weirdo.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat on? That's weird.
So this was the book for me. And that book is by Kate Alice Marshall, and it is These Fleeting Shadows. And this is a YA thriller, I think with some horror elements. I don't think it's categorized as a horror, but it was pretty freaking scary. So we're starting off with some pretty strong Knives Out vibes. We're following Helen, and Helen and her mother are estranged from her mother's family. But then one day, Helen's grandfather actually passes away, and in his will, he leaves everything to Helen. So they have to go back to the house so that she can receive her inheritance. However, the catch is she can only receive all of the money and the house if she stays in the house for 1 year exactly. And Helen's mom is really, really against this. She wants to protect Helen, and she knows that her family is they're not good. They're not good people, okay? But if Helen doesn't stay, no one gets anything either. And so there's like a lot of pressure put on Helen to actually stay for 1 year, and she decides to stay in this weird old manor for 1 year. However, the house is not what it seems, and their family is not what it seems, and it is so twisty and turny and just wild. It's very wild. There's a lot that happens in this book, way more than the plot actually would let on. And there are a couple of devices used in this book that I think some people will really heavily not like. There's like some common tropes that I could see people maybe not loving, but for me, it just all worked so well. My reading experience specifically for this book was just pure joy. Like, I was reading it and I was so excited that I actually had to pause and put down the book so that I could just bask in happiness. And that's why it's on the top list. While maybe this is not going to be a book for everyone, this book brought me so much joy that it had to be included in my top 10 list. Not that it's a happy book, it's actually quite dark and sketchy. So next up is another book that shouldn't make me happy because it was categorized as an adult horror, but somehow brought me so much joy, and that is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Okay, so new discovery of 2022, and that is I am a horror fan. Who knew? Absolutely who, I didn't know. I thought I hated horror. Guess not! This book is following Gretchen and Abby, and they have been best friends ever since they were little girls. And a big portion of this book is just specifically exploring and learning all about their friendship, and they are the world's most perfect best friends. Like, they love each other so much, and they would do absolutely anything to protect each other. And this book actually follows the year that Gretchen happens to get possessed by the devil, and Abby has to find a way to save her. It's interesting because this book is really disgusting and really horrifying and absolutely terrifying, but for me, it felt so wholesome. At the core of this book, it's all about friendship and it's all about best friends. And you know what, you guys? I am just a sucker for besties and stories about besties. I think that this book would be perfect for lovers of Stranger Things. Stranger Things is a book that perfectly matches with this because it's very, very horrifying and scary, but also it has 80s vibes, and its core focus is on friendship. And that's exactly what this book is. We've got 80 vibes, friendship vibes, horrific, scary vibes. I don't know. I absolutely love this, and I think you will too. Next up is another horror. Again, I'm very surprised. And that is going to be House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. This book is wild. This book looked Edward Cullen in the face and said, "You are not a real vampire. You are not scary, sir. You sparkle and you disgust me." What does that mean? So this book is pretty terrifying, and it's all about vampires. Sort of. So in this particular world, there are things called blood maids, and basically the super, super wealthy employ people to work for them so that they can drink their blood, because in this world, drinking people's blood just keeps them very like vital and beautiful and healthy. It's weird. Marion Shaw decides that she wants to try to become a blood maid, and she is hired by one of the wealthiest and most powerful houses, and she becomes the blood maid to this countess. It's fascinating. Like, it's a very sexy book, it's a very dark book, it's a very scary book, but everything in this world was so intriguing. It had very, very strong gothic vibes, and if you're a person who is looking for a very sexy vampire story where the vampires are bad guys, I think you will really, really like this book. Also, I do keep saying vampires, but it's not exactly like that because it's more just like the super wealthy people are the ones who are drinking blood, but it's kind of like a vampire story. But anyways, okay, great. Could not recommend it more if you are interested in a sexy, scary good time. Okay? Okay. I don't even think I'm saying numbers for this at this point. I want to say that this is book 4. Is this book 4? But number 4 is going to be Where the Drowned Girls Go, and this is by Shauna Maguire. Every single year, Shauna Maguire makes my list, sometimes multiple times, because I literally love her writing. Shauna Maguire could step on me and I would say thank you. So this particular series is called the Wayward Children series, and it's following a group of children turned adults turned young adults, and they all come back from other worlds. Think like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, that kind of a thing. And when they come back, they really, really are desperate to get back to their other worlds, and they are currently stuck at Eleanor West's home for wayward children, waiting for their worlds to open back up and invite them back. And every single book kind of follows a different character in the series and a different person in the series. This one is following Cora. Without giving too much away, Cora basically just doesn't want anything to do with magic anymore because a world that was not her world sucked her in, and now she's terrified. And so she decides to actually try to transfer to a different school. The school that she's transferred to is not like Eleanor West's school. They are trying to convince the kids that their worlds and magic doesn't exist. And so we're following Cora at this school and the adventures that happen there. It's a very dark book. I think most books in this adult novella series are dark, but this one in particular, I think gets a little bit sad and dark very, very quickly on. However, this is actually, I think, my favorite book in the series now. There was so much symbolism and so many excellent conversations, I think, that were brought up here. I also love Cora as a main character. I just felt like she was written so well. Her character arc was so strong in this, as well as her character development. Like, it's a very, very short book, but in such a short amount of time, Cora grows exponentially, which which is always really, really fun for me to read as a reader. If you're a person who loves fantasy and portal worlds, and if you're also a person who really, really enjoys a lot of really, really great topics and themes in books, I think you'll really love this series, and I think you'll really, really love this book. I just recommend the series in general because it's wonderful. Okay, coming in at number 3 is going to be a contemporary middle grade that has my entire heart, and that is Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand. This is a book that literally took my heart, shattered it to bits, handed it back to me, and I said, thank you, please do it again. The book is following Finley, and Finley's parents are actually currently kind of trying to figure out if they want to get a divorce or not. And Finley is sent to live with her grandparents for the summer. And Finley also finds a lot of comfort in writing about this fictional magical world. When things get very tough at home and when her parents are fighting constantly, she actually escapes into this magical little world. It's a world, I think, that takes place in an enchanted forest. When she goes to her grandparents' house, she actually finds that a forest that matches her exact description is actually behind their house, and she and her cousins go to her world every single day. It's a book that explores specifically mental health in middle grade aged kids, so ages like 8 to 12, and it's handled so beautifully. I absolutely love Claire Legrand's writing. I just feel like Claire Legrand is such a brilliant author, and the book is so important and vital, I think, because there are so many things in here that kids can relate to, and it was just handled in such a beautiful, beautiful way. Okay. So let me explain number 2. Number 2 is more of a genre, and I have 3 books for it, and I know that's cheating, okay? I'm well aware that I am a cheater McCheaterson. However, all 3 of these books are tied, and all 3 deserve the second place, and I think they all encompass my new favorite genre, and that is cozy fantasy. Tied for number 2 is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which is an adult cozy fantasy. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, and finally Nettle and Bone by T. King Fisher. So before I get into the individual plots, I just have to tell you why I love this genre so much. I like it because I tend to get very stressed in life and I overthink absolutely everything. This genre really makes me feel safe and happy and relaxed in a way that almost no other genre has. So I'm gonna go through their plots super, super briefly. This is about Mara, and Mara has to save her sister who's been married off to an evil prince. It's about her journey there with her fairy godmother, with a graveyard witch, with a dog that she had to put together with bones, and also with a knight who she meets at the goblin market. This particular book is following Mika. Mika is a witch who is employed to actually help 3 young witches learn how to discover their magic, and it's an adult romance between her and a grumpy librarian named Jamie. And then this particular book, Legends and Lattes, is about an orc named Viv, and Viv decides to actually take a break from her adventuring life and open up a cozy cafe and coffee shop instead. I feel like the stakes for these books really varies. This one is extremely low stakes, so if you're looking for a very slow moving plot that's very, very cozy, this is probably the first one to reach for. I do feel like the stakes on this one are probably the highest, but it felt so cozy and so comforting that I had to include it in this cozy fantasy genre. And then this is one of my favorite romances I've just ever read. I felt like some of the quotes in this were so beautiful and so lyrical and lush, and it's just such a fantastic read. I could not recommend these books more if you are looking for the ultimate cozy fantasy. And then finally, my number 1 favorite book of the year is actually a series, and that is the Fence series. I was not expecting to love this series so much. This is a YA graphic novel series, and it's a contemporary series, and it's also a competition series as well. The book is following Nicholas, and Nicholas wants to become a fencer because he's the illegitimate son of a world-class fencer, and he wants his dad's attention. So he actually ends up entering in a contest, and when he's entered in this contest, he is very, very badly beaten and embarrassed by his new mortal enemy named Seiji. It's S-E-I-J-I, and I don't know how to pronounce it for the life of me, but yes, that's his new mortal enemy. And after he gets his kicked. He ends up trying out for this preparatory school so that he can try to get on the fencing team because he's desperate to get good at fencing so that now he can also beat CeCe. Because again, this guy is his new mortal enemy. The school actually gives him room and board for free until the tryouts. And then if he makes the fencing team, he actually gets to stay there again for free on scholarship because I don't think he can afford it without the scholarship. And when he goes into his new room, he meets his new roommate, CeCe, his new mortal enemy. It's such a fantastic and fast-paced read, but it's also really, really heartwarming and happy. If you're a person who really loved Heartstopper, for example, I think you would really, really like this series because it's just so lighthearted. One thing that I am learning about myself from 2022's book list is that I just like books that make me happy. I like books that can make me feel pure joy and completely take me out of my mind. I think that is found with like fun, silly stories like this Fence series. And yeah, I just had the best time. I read every single volume that was out. I am eagerly anticipating all of the volumes in this series. I never want this series to end, and I could not recommend it more. I just thought it was so much fun. But there you have it. Those are all 10 of my favorite books for this year, 2022. I would love to hear from all of you guys though. What was your #1 favorite book of the year? Or if you want to tell me multiple books, please let me know that as well. And if you have made it to this part of the video, please leave me either the trophy emoji or the star emoji. And before I go, a huge thank you to all of my Patreons over at Fox and Wood, as well as my executive producers of this video. All of your names will be down in my description. Thank you so much for all of your continued support. I love you guys so much. I think that's it. So until next time, you guys, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will see you very soon. Bye!